Hello friends. In this video I'm going to be doing another tutorial on package building. I think this may be my third video on package building. With that said, you can't just make a video on package building and it age well. As time goes by, SDK changes and updates, and the methods in which you use to build packages also change. Now, so far up to date, the methods that I have taught before, and even the methods I learned when I first started, where you physically go in with a text editor and change the XML files, they all still work. However, as new people decide they want to build scenery or realize they can build scenery, it's a good idea to update the videos and use the latest methods. And even some of you that's been building scenery for a while, this is probably a good idea to change your methods in building the packages to be more up to date. I will walk through the methods I use now to build packages, but if you are new to building scenery, I recommend that you watch the 3 short tutorials following this introduction, and by watching those you should be prepared to do the same work I'm going to do now. So here are the tutorials. Greetings and welcome to Patriot 6. I make tutorial videos for scenery building or modifications to scenery in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 utilizing SDK. Different people at different levels of skill see these videos. You may be here because you're curious, or you may already know the basics of scenery building. It is impossible for me to know who will click on a video. Because of the broad range of folks that view the videos, I include the basics in each video. This and all new videos will be built in chapters. You can find the chapters of the video in the description below. In addition, you can see the chapters on the video timeline if you want to skip the basic chapters. To build scenery in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020, you must be in developer's mode. And this is a very simple process, and I'll walk through it. First, you go to Options. Go to General Options, you go to Developers, On, Apply and Save. Once in Developers mode, you will see a menu appear at the top. I refer to this often as the Developers menu. In addition to being in Developers mode, you must have SDK, and this is a very simple process. You go up to the Developers menu, you find the Help, you tick on Help, and then you tick on SDK Installer Core, and a window will open up and SDK will load in. And from that point you can decide where you want the SDK. I'm going to tick off of this because I already have it. I put SDK on my C drive and I called the folder MSFS SDK, but you can place SDK where you want to place it. In addition to that, it's always good to go in and get the samples, and from the same help menu you want to go down to samples, and again you will download the samples. I'm going to stop it because I already have the samples. And once you download the samples, you can go into your SDK folder that you built, and you can find samples by ticking on the samples folder. And there's all kinds of samples here, but the one most often used is the one called Simple Scenery. Let's talk about the developer camera. The developer camera is something that is vital and something that you will use often. And to get to the developer camera, you go up to the developer menu, tick on Camera, and tick on Developer Camera. Operating the developer camera is a lot like operating the drone camera. So I'll show you the keys that we use to operate the developer camera. If we want to drop, we hit the F key. If we want to rise, we hit the R key. If we want to go left, we use the A key. And if we want to go right, we use the D key. If we want to go forward, we use the W key. And if we want to go in reverse, we use the S key. There's also some numerical keys that you can use. On the number pad, the 4 key will spin you, and the 6 key will spin you in the opposite direction. The 8 key will tilt your camera up, and the 2 key will tilt your camera down. Occasionally when you're building scenery, your azimuth will get off. So that's very easy to correct by using the 7 key or the 9 key. And then you can correct your azimuth. You can also use the mouse and freely move around. By holding down the left Alt key and by using your left mouse button, you're able to move anywhere you want to move. Also, you can use the mouse wheel to zoom in or out. Almost always, this is a process I go through. I'll tick on the developer camera. I will drop to the ground using the F key. Then I will use the left Alt key and the left mouse button to make sure I can spin in small areas. That is the fine control of the camera I'm looking for. What I don't want is this. You see what happened there? As soon as I got in and I used my mouse button to move, look how far I am from my aircraft. So again, to the developer camera, drop down with the F key, and with the left Alt key depressed and the left mouse button, make sure you can make minute movements. And now you're good to go and ready to use the developer camera. Let's talk about the tools that we need to build scenery. In most projects, it's very simple. The items which you use to build scenery are typically in your scenery library already. There are exceptions though. If you are bringing a 3D model into the sim, that would be an exception. If you are using the Earth to MSFS tool, that is another exception. And on occasion, you may need a text editor. I will explain the reason for the text editor once I do a video where the text editor is needed. For starters, put a folder on your desktop that you will use as your working scenery folder. I have one here and I will show you what I have in it. All I have in it is a simple scenery folder I downloaded from SDK, and I do have a thumbnail. In the simple scenery folders that you download through this version of SDK, a thumbnail is not mandatory because there is a standard thumbnail within the scenery package. However, on all of my projects, I choose to have a thumbnail, and it's your choice where you want to go with the standard thumbnail in the scenery folder or if you want your own. If you decide you want to make your own thumbnail, the thumbnail has to be the precise dimensions of this thumbnail I use, 412 by 170 pixels. No other size will work. So if you build your own thumbnail, please keep this rule in mind. Welcome back and let's begin. The first thing I'm going to do is bring up the working scenery folder. And as you see at this point, all I have in the working scenery folder are 3 items. The simple scenery template from SDK, the thumbnail in which I use on all of my scenery projects, and the Earth to MSFS tool, which I will not be using today. To begin, we want to make a copy of the simple scenery folder. And with a copy in the working scenery folder now, let's give this a name. And I will use the format that I always use. and I used the name Patriot 6 Smyrna, Tennessee Scenery. So here's the rationale behind my naming. I always begin a package with the company name, Patriot 6. You may not have a company name. You can insert whatever name you want to make up to call yourself. After the first hyphen, I normally add something in this section here that resembles the area in which I'm going to be working. And today, for the purpose of this tutorial, I'm in Smyrna, Tennessee. So in the second part of the name, I'm going to put Smyrna, TN. In the last hyphen, I'm just going to put scenery. Sometimes if I'm building lights, I will put light at the end of it. And sometimes I will use scenery, and if I'm doing more advanced work like using the Earth to MSFS tool, I'll typically end the package name with Earth. As I sort through the scenery files, having this naming convention helps keep me on track. In other words, I know if this is a lighting package, a scenery package, or an Earth package, and I know the location. And now with that out of the way and the package renamed, we want to remember this name though. We can begin. I'm already in developer's mode, and you should be too. And if you watched the short tutorials before this video, you know how to do that. Up on the dab menu, I'm going to Options, and I'm going to pause the simulation so my little velocicopter doesn't fly away. The time of day is set. I've got the live weather off so it's clear skies, and now I'm going to fly. Now I'm going up to the dab menu and tick on the developer camera. And again, if you followed the tutorials before this video, you know how to use the developer camera. So I'm going to drop straight down. With the left Alt and the left mouse button, I'm going to move around and make sure I have fine control of the camera. That's good. And I'm going to position myself. This is the area I will be working. Now that I'm in place and I have the first part of the package built, I'm going to open up the tools. Up on the dab menu, I'm going to click Tools and Project Editor. And once a project editor comes up, if the inspector window doesn't come up for you, you can tick on the project editor menu, view, and bring up the project editor, because you're going to need the project editor. Now on the project editor, I'm going to Project, Open Project, and you want to navigate to the working scenery folder or whatever folder you choose. And because I've done this very often, the project editor knows the exact folder to go to, and I'm on the right folder, so I'm going to tick on the Patriot 6 Smyrna, Tennessee Scenery. I want to open the folder. And once a folder opens, you see Package Definitions, Package Sources, and Scenery Project XML. I want to tick on the Scenery Project XML and open. And once opened, you will notice on the project editor, there is a name down here called My Company Scenery Simple. That's exactly the name the SDK will give the project if I allowed it to. But I'm not going to allow it to use this name, so I want to tick on this. And when I do, the inspector opens up. And probably the easiest thing to do right off the bat is to create a title. This section, the item settings section, all it does is fill out information that you can see in the content manager. But I'm going to give it the title Smyrna, Tennessee Scenery. And so that my creator shows up in the content manager, I'm going to change this to Patriot 6. And these packages already have a thumbnail, and you can use their thumbnail, but I'm going to use my own personal thumbnail. And by ticking on this, it's going to open the most recent location that it knows, but I'm going to go up a level to the working scenery folder contents, and I'm going to tick on the thumbnail I use. And the thumbnail's in. Now let's move up to this top section. This is the name in which we will give the package. So I want to be consistent, so I want the package to have the same name as I chose for the scenery folder. Under company name, I'm going to change this to Patriot 6, but you will notice in doing so you can't put spaces. If you try a space, it's going to put a hyphen. And since I want this name to match the package title, you can see Scenery Simple in here. And my package title is Patriot 6 Smyrna, Tennessee Scenery. So I already have Patriot 6 up here in the company name. And now I'm going to put Smyrna, Tennessee Scenery here. And once I complete this, you will notice that the name down here in the project editor has changed to Patriot 6 Smyrna, Tennessee Scenery, which is exactly what I want. This name here will be the name that SDK gives the package. There'll be no more going in and changing the name of the package after you drop it in the community folder. As soon as I complete the work here and build the package will already be named for me and ready to drop in the community folder. Let's take it one more step. If I tick on the project as it is now, you'll see that it has the marketplace data, which I'm really not interested in, my scene BGL, and my model lib. My scene BGL and my scene model lib are generic names as used, so let's change that and make it unique. So up here on the inspector at the very bottom, above build package, you see my scene BGL and my model lib. So let's tick on the edit button, and up here at the top where it says name, let's change the my to Smyrna, Tennessee, and leave the scene in here. All I did was insert Smyrna, Tennessee in front of the name scene. So I could just tick off of that. And we'll notice down here in the project editor, it changed to Smyrna, Tennessee scene. Now you notice that the inspector doesn't have the same information. That's because I'm ticked on scene. If I go back and tick on the project here, and now I have all of the information in the inspector. So the BGL is now complete and renamed, and let's do the same thing with my model lib. Let's replace my with Smyrna, Tennessee. I have Smyrna in there, and now I'm just going to delete my. And now we have Smyrna, Tennessee model lib. That is a unique name. And now once I tick on the project and bring the inspector back up, you now see that I have a Smyrna, Tennessee model, which was the name I gave it, and Smyrna, Tennessee scene. At this point now, we have everything changed the way we want it, and we can build the package. Of course, this dialog box always pops up when you change anything in the inspector. You want to accept the changes by ticking yes. And now the package is built. There's a couple things you can do. You can go up to the dev menu, tick window, and remove the console, or you can simply X out the console here. Now I'll pull up the working scenery folder and test it. Now I'm going to open the scenery folder I'm working on. And if I open packages, you will see what the package name is going to be. Patriot 6 Smyrna, Tennessee Scenery. That's exactly what we're looking for. And now I want to test the package, so I'm going to make a few small changes, save the changes, build the package, put the package in the community folder, and test it. Since I live here, I know in real life that these buildings do not look like this. So I'm going to make a simple polygon. So to start, I want to drop down to the scene It would have been my scene BGL, but now it's Smyrna, Tennessee scene, and I want to tick on this file. And up on the inspector, I want to load in editor. And you'll notice that other folders popped up. The scenery editor popped up, which is good. It will always pop up. And for me, the gizmo and the objects popped up. I'm going to need both of these folders also. So you can drop down on the scenery editor. And you can tick on objects. And you can tick on gizmo. Now, as I was talking, I noticed the scenery library loaded in. And this is an important thing to do, and this is where some people go a little south. They just miss one little simple step. And that is go up to your Objects menu and tick All. Now you have access to everything in your Objects library. Now I want to remove these buildings, and I'm going to use a polygon to remove them. And I'm not going into detail on how to build polygons and what polygons will do. But in the description below, I will link a video where you can learn how to use polygons and what you can use polygons for. So on the Objects window, I want to change from Scenery to Polygon. And now I'm going to build a polygon. And once a polygon is complete, I'm going down to the Scenery Editor. I'm going to tick View. And I want to bring up Properties. And once the properties are up, I want to tick on Buildings, Exclude All. And these buildings are now gone. Well, I need something in their place. So up on the Objects menu, I'm going back from Polygon to Scenery. As always, tick All. And now I'm going to look for a building to replace it. I happen to know that you can find apartments in here, just generic apartments. So in the search window, I'm going to type the full word generic. Generic balconies will work. This is actually like apartment buildings. The only easy thing you can do is once you find an object that you like, you can make notes of the object so you can refer back to it later. So I'm going to have to test and find something. Actually, that's fine. You notice I'm using a little green thing to pull it around. And I'm going over to the gizmo and change to rotate. And get it squared up with what I want to use. Back to translate. And move it into place. So here's the crazy thing about adding buildings. You can actually run them into each other and it looked fairly good. Can't really tell the difference, so I'm going to do that. So I'm going to add another. And rotate it around. And it's a little too large, so over on the gizmo, I'm going to tick on scale. And you can manually type in a scale you want. This is in a power of 1. Or you can grab these arrows, and one of these will help you scale the item. That seems about right. Back to translate. Move it a little bit. And even though these are inside of each other, it doesn't look bad. And this size looks pretty good, so I'm going to reuse it. So make sure I'm ticked on this building here. And I am. And I'm going down to the scenery editor and hit duplicate. As simple as that seemed, we changed the buildings here from the AI generated flat buildings to higher rise buildings, which in real life is what I see here. I think that's enough for this demonstration. So with the scenery as it is now, I'm going down to the scenery editor and I'm going to save the scenery. And by the way, I recommend saving this scenery more than I did here because things can happen. And with the scenery saved, I want to go back over to the project editor and I want to get off of the scenery BGL and go back up to the project. Make sure the inspector lights up with the information and build the package. And now the package is built and everything's saved, I can turn the tools off. I'm going to bring up the working scenery folder. And with the working scenery folder up, I'm going to open this particular scenery folder that we built. Look in the packages, and there's the package, and that's good. Now I also want to bring up the community folder. For me, I keep a shortcut of the community folder on my desktop for easy access. So that's a little tip that may help you. Just go in your community folder and create a shortcut, put it on your desktop, and it's a one click to grab it every time. Now over in the new package we just built, again, make sure you open the active scenery folder you're working on. Go down to packages. Here's the package. Inside the packages folder, we want to copy this and place it in the community folder. And now it's pasted in. You can exit out of this and restart the sim. Restart is necessary to pick up any new items in the community folder. And so that's why I'm restarting. And now with Microsoft Flight Simulator reloaded to pick up the new package, I'm going to stay in developers mode. I'm going to use the developer camera to look at the work that I just did. Hop in the world and find myself. Here is the apartment complex that we worked on. So I'll set my departure point here, and now I'm going to fly. And now that I'm loaded in, I don't want my little velocicopter to fly away, so I'm going up to the dev menu. I'm going to options and pause the sim. And now I can hit ready to fly. I'm going up to dev menu again and hop in the developer camera. And what do you know? There's our apartment buildings we added. And even though I ran objects into objects, as you can tell, it looks fine. Actually looks like it was built that way. At this point, we're through, but I want to give you one final bit of advice. If you're going to go in and maybe make a small amount of packages for your own personal scenery, you'll probably be fine putting those in the community folder. But if you're like me and you're going to go add to all the areas you enjoy flying, then you may want to consider another method. I think I have built in the neighborhood between 300 or 400 packages, and some of those packages include the Earth to MSFS tool. And I will tell you, the Earth to MSFS tool is a nice tool, but the packages it creates are very large. And if you start adding a lot of these to your community folder, you're going to have slowdowns in the game loading and slowdowns in your flights loading. So over time, you will run into delays in your simulator starting. And to avoid that, I recommend a tool called MSFS Addon Linker that you can get on flightsim.to. And I made a complete video on how to use this tool, and I will link that below, and that will help you out down the road if you start building a lot of scenery. And with that, I think we're done. I've walked through the newest way to build packages and actually added a little scenery to show you how it's done, and I hope you got something useful from this video. If you like this, I would appreciate a thumbs up and a subscription because I make videos like this fairly regularly. And also, I'll put a link below to the Patriot Six Scenery Group Facebook page. It's not a large page, but we have several members in there from all over the globe that build scenery, and we share ideas. And if we run into issues, we ask questions. And if you want to build scenery, this may be a good resource for you to help you out in the future because you can have direct access to me. I do answer questions in the YouTube comments all the time, but with the YouTube comments, you're very limited on the information you can give a person because you can't show illustrations or anything like that. But on the Facebook page, we can share images and a lot more information than you can in the YouTube comments. And with that, I'll say goodbye and thank you for watching Patriot 6. Come back and watch again soon.